Hello, everyone. Before we dive into today's episode, I wanted to remind you that my book, Drummers on Drumming, is available now on Amazon as both a paperback and an ebook. Based on the Big Fat 5 segment of this podcast, where I sit down with my favorite drummers to discuss the 5 records and stories that shaped their approach to the instrument, this book is packed with insights from the drummers who redefined how we think about the modern drum set. You can grab your copy now by checking the link in this episode's show notes or simply searching Drummers on Drumming on Amazon. So thank you for all the support, and now let's get into the show. What is up? Welcome back to Drummers on Drumming, a podcast powered by Big Fat Snare Drum. We are back with another installment of The Drum Panel, and this is actually part 2 of last week's discussion with Eric Urrea. We talked for over 2.5 hours, so I just put it into 2 episodes. And also I'm on tour with a band called The Palms right now, so I don't have a lot of time to have another guest. So anyways, we're just going to hop right into it, but this is the continuation of my chat with Eric Urrea. I love you, bye. What's the most useful failure you've had as a musician?
I feel like failure is just useful in general, but to
Go
pick
on.
like one, to me it's like learning how to deal with your mistakes is like such a vital part about what we do. Like even as a teacher, what I tell students, even just as a small minor example, is that if they drop a stick, they should not stop playing. They should stop playing once they've recovered from the drop stick, then they can like go back and be like, okay, I'm going to start the song over, whatever. Just so you can learn how to recover from your failures. You know, I tell people all the time I've never played a perfect show in my life. And
Me neither.
And similar to what we've been talking about is like the excitement is in the pursuit of finding that perfect show. But hiding all those little mini failures, all those little, oh, I rushed a fill here, or I dropped a beat here. Hopefully, maybe not, but...
Yeah, luckily I haven't dropped beats in a while, but I think you either win or you learn. Or you learn, either you learn or you learn. And there you go. But I would say, I guess it's been, I won't name a specific gig, but maybe a gig I didn't get that, looking back on it, that gig might have turned into something that would have been kind of a train wreck, or would have made me not be able to do this other thing that ended up being a bigger thing, you know, that kind of stuff. So it's going back to Ryan Holiday and the stoicism thing I was talking about. He tries to, and I really do practice this, when something bad happens, you ask yourself, how is this the best thing that's ever happened to me? And truly believe you asking that question. And you will find a way, kind of like if you're in an argument with someone or you have a certain belief about something, see if you can genuinely make an argument for the opposition. And even though it won't change your mind, it will change your perspective a little bit. And so when I don't get a gig, or a gig gets canceled and I lose money, or yada, 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 how is this the best thing that's ever happened to me? And your reality is the way you think.
I'm stealing that. That's going in my back pocket. That's great. You made me think about all the audition horror stories I've got.
Well, for you to even have something and think that I'm missing out on something, or looking back in your life and having regret that you didn't do something, or maybe you messed this up, or anything happened, how crazy is it for you to actually believe that if that one thing would have happened, I would be better off right now? You have no way of knowing that. And everything is context, and you never know that thing you missed out on, that could have been the worst thing for you. You know, even in like this is a crazy thing to say, but you would have gotten that gig and traveled and did that UK tour that you've always wanted to do. And what if on that UK tour, you got hit by a bus? You know, it's such a crazy thing to say, but you're assuming that you know everything would have been better if that thing would have happened to you. So you just don't think about regret.
That's a great way to put it. My base level is just happy idiot all the time. So I'm just like, isn't life amazing? so I do. It does help though to go back and think all of the great things that I'm happy with may have not happened if I had gotten that one gig that I auditioned for forever ago. Maybe I wouldn't have met my wife, and you know,
Exactly.
I wouldn't be where I am right now. It's a billion things could have happened. That's a great way to put perspective on moments?
It's tough, and when I'm saying these things out loud, I want the audience to know that I don't think I practice what I preach all the time. This is an ongoing thing. It's something I'm always working on, and I don't have the answers, but this is just what helps me. And the things I say are things I tell myself, whether I always believe them or not. The more I tell them to myself, the more I really do believe them. But so it's funny to me, like when I first said, like a few drum panels ago, where I was like, you seem like such a happy, confident guy. And then you said that you were surprised when I said that. Sorry if this is getting a little too deep. This is how I prefer to talk to people. But is it a conscious thing for you to not portray yourself falsely? Because I really do feel like you're a happy guy. You're just dealing with the things that a lot of us deal with. But why do you feel that someone would, like me, paint you as an overall happy guy? Is that a conscious effort for, like, I'm not even sure if this is the right question. I need to get better at asking questions, but.
No, I hear what you're saying. I would say anyone who knows me would probably say that I am just full on Labrador Retriever energy all day. Just, like I said, happy idiot. Mm-hmm. That's where I operate. I'm never really mad or in bad spirits. Maybe that's not entirely true, but generally speaking, I would say what surprised me the most was you said that I was confident and I had my shit together, which, or at least implied that
I'm sorry, I should have never said that to
you. Yeah, how dare you? Honestly, how dare you? I would say that's probably the thing that I'm most aware of is I get imposter syndrome a lot, like we talk about, and it's not that it's something that will impact my overall happiness or demeanor. But generally, like, I shut down a lot in social situations. I would say I have a very small social battery,
Sure.
Generally speaking. It's similar to what we were talking about was it with Mike, right?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, about just like I'm usually not one who likes to go out and have like you certainly won't find me at a club unless I'm paid to play drums there.
I'm the same.
Yeah. I was taken aback more about the kind of, you said very nice things, and also just hearing nice things is shocking sometimes.
Oh, of course. Well, I guess to me, there's two different kinds of confidence. There's the movie star version of what confidence is, mm-hmm. and then there's the person that I know that I'm talking to them.
There's no facade.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the music industry in general, based off the unbridled self-doubt, you meet a lot of people that are seemingly confident, but you're like, I don't even know, what is this void I'm talking to right now? But the confidence that I was talking about, not that you don't come across as confident also, but I'm saying when I talk to people that are, I just know I'm talking to them. It's so scary, and there's like an internal, like a real confidence when you connect with someone. And maybe it's just because our brains work similarly, like I was talking about earlier, with knowing about who I am and knowing how my brain works, so to give grace with other people that they might think differently, and so not to interpret it in a negative way. But maybe it's just because I connected with you. We connected right off the bat when we met each other, and because we knew each other. Same with Jessica, I think, is when I met her the first time at NAMM. But that's the kind of, I'm like, man, this dude's confident, just be himself. And I've never seen you be fake with like the content you put out, you talking to the camera. I would say that's more confident. Even if I saw you, like I was a fly on the wall and you were at a big party and maybe you weren't Mr. Social, but the few interactions you did have, I could tell you were trying to create a genuine connection, and then you shut down. I'd be like, that dude's actually way more confident than these other people, whatever the hell that means, the person that can just be a social butterfly. Mm-hmm. And so it's kind of like going back to, if I can make it kind of about drums again, with the confidence of, finding your voice. Is I also read this quote recently where you eliminate competition through authenticity, so that's the kind of confidence I think I had from you and still have for you, even knowing that you have a small social battery.
Well, I appreciate it. And it means a ton coming from you. To be honest, I'm so impressed by even just your ability to like talk to people the way that you do on this podcast. Like just jumping into a conversation with a stranger who some of them may be your idols is something that is like, generally speaking, unfathomable to me. So
Well, not that, and my therapist says I should just say, well, thanks, Eric. I appreciate that.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
I will say one thing, just because if people do, not that I'm Mr. Suave on my podcast, but if there's ever someone, even if I'm talking to one person right now and it helps them, if people ever think they listen to my podcast and they think, wow, Ben can talk to these famous drummers and he just comes across as so collected and whatever, I want people to know that there's not one episode I don't edit out dead air or edit out a question that I ask where I stutter and don't ask the question properly and they are like, what? I don't get it. And I edit that out to where it just seems like everything kind of like when I play a show, you're seeing the rehearsed version. So I still get nervous as fuck around people. I just talked about the David Garibaldi thing the other week, but even if that would have been technologically perfect, and nothing would have happened, I still would have edited out a lot of the things I said that it just came across as like a bumbling idiot. And so I only release the fully edited out parts of my conversations. So I still struggle with it all the time. Every single time before I send that Zoom link, I do a little pep talk to myself, just like, Ben, just be yourself, bro. My way of dealing with it is just like the Jimmy Fallon approach. Try and be a person that makes them feel good. Not that it's manipulative, but I feel that's the quickest way to make them feel comfortable around me is if I'm this. I think we talked about it with networking. It's just sometimes you walk away and you're like, man, no one was really they didn't feel like they wanted to get to know me and whatever. But it's like, if you actually think about it, what energy were you giving off? Were you sitting there with no smile on your face with your head down? You have to give off energy. It's reverse charisma like we were talking about. But maybe just for an experiment, I should release some of the unedited episodes and it'll make the people that think that they can't talk to people be like, oh, no, I'm better than Ben.
Well, you've heard it here first that Ben quantizes his videos.
I do. Oh my God. I quantize the hell out of them, like 100%. And that's why you see me sometimes re-edit episodes or re-air previous episodes.
Oh, sure.
Usually it's because I don't have time. I'm on tour and I can't get a guest. But also it's because there's one part of the conversation that whenever I hear it, because yes, I do sometimes go back and listen to my episodes just to see how neurotic I am.
It's funny to be meta about it. After the last drum panel we did, when I was in Florida about to kick off the tour.
Yes.
I spent like days in my head about it because I was just so frazzled that day, and I was just like, I don't know how Ben does it when he's on the road. My brain just was not operating. I just couldn't function. I felt like I was a wet dish towel that day.
If I remember, I think me and Mike talked most of the time. I remember there was an episode where when I was editing it, I was like, we did not let Eric say anything.
I'm curious how you stay sane on the road, or if you even have any issues with staying sane on the road. I know that's such like a hot button issue for a lot of people, and it being on tour I've seen it break, quote unquote, a lot of musicians, and so I'm curious how people deal with it.
Well, the immediate answer is working on my mental health, going to therapy, all that jazz, and realizing how your brain works. Because I recently got diagnosed with ADHD, and we've talked about it on the podcast I've talked about it with a few people, and just knowing how, like reading up on it and knowing how my brain compartmentalizes things, the way I react to criticism, the way I react to, there's always one person on the road that is having a difficult day, whether it's inside or outside of their body. And so just working on yourself and being someone who can be resilient and not take things personal. I mean, most of what happens on the road when I have a bad time is based on interpersonal dynamics. And I'll be the first to admit it, I've been a part of reasons why the vibe has not been there. So I've really worked on that, and it's an ongoing struggle. And I'm always reading 3 books at a time. It's either a fictional story, like an American classic or some sci-fi, and then I'm reading a memoir, usually having to do with a creative person, and then some sort of, an internal journey book. And those are also, I'm always working on that. But full disclosure, I never considered myself someone who drank a lot, but a few years ago, I'm 38 now, and I just decided to just cut back almost entirely because I didn't feel amazing, and on the road, if you're dehydrated and you're not getting the best sleep, then again, it goes back to mental health, but that's usually which, I mean, you asked me how I stay sane, which is mental health. So, but yeah, just cutting back on the things I didn't think about when I was younger. I didn't want to associate touring, which is a huge part of my income and my career, as when I let my health go down the drain. And so not only do I drink a lot of water, I don't really drink. And then I also am very specific and particular about making sure I still work out 4 or 5 days a week on the road, because that's really important to me. I know you run and run way further than I ever will. But yeah, those things. It's not about becoming a better drummer. I play the least amount of drums I play is when I'm on the road. And yeah, what about you?
Well, first question, really quick, is do you read those books while you're on the road? Like, do you specifically like pick out these are the 3 books that are going to be like my sort of escape on the bus or whatever? Or are you just talking about in general? That's what
in general,
reading?
I'm always,
okay.
Like right now I'm in the middle of a few books. I'm in the middle of a book called Self-Esteem, actually, which says it's a really thick, very comprehensive book about triggers and the way your brain goes through things. So that's that book. And then I'm reading Fahrenheit 182, which is Blink-182, Mark Hoppus from Blink. It's his memoir. And then I just finished Survivor by Chuck Palahniuk. I think that's how you pronounce his name, the guy who wrote like Fight Club. And so now I'm actually really excited because I get to pick my new, I'm not sure if you can see from my, there's a lot of books on a shelf behind this bush right here. And then there's loads of books over there that I'm excited to choose from because I'm going on tour with the Palms in like a few days. So I get to pick a new fiction book. But the other books I'm barely even into. So, but yeah, it's an ongoing thing.
Sure.
And then if I'm on tour, another thing to stay sane is I go to vintage shops, record shops, and bookstores.
Okay.
So I love to pick up a new book.
That's awesome.
What about you, Eric?
Oh, there it is. We got one.
Take a drink, everyone.
Yeah, I would say similar. I think the running for me is huge. I've sort of like discovered and made peace with the idea that I am somebody who needs a certain amount of time to be totally alone with my thoughts and away from everybody else. So going for like an hour long, or if I don't have an hour, 30 minutes, whatever, just going for a run, and especially if I'm somewhere cool and able to going for a run outside and just kind of taking in my environment and just being alone to kind of think about all the horrible existential things that you think about when you're alone. No, but
all the feelings.
Yeah, all the feelings. But no, genuinely though, that's been a really important thing for me. Is I say that I have a small social battery, and that's true. But I love, like, everybody that I have been fortunate enough to tour with have been very close friends or have become very close friends of mine. I've been lucky to not have to tour with anybody that I don't want to be around.
Yes.
But
You're very lucky.
Yes, very lucky. And I'm for sure aware of how lucky I am for that. But even though I enjoy being around these people, having those moments to myself, to appreciate my surroundings, even just to like step outside and to appreciate how lucky I am to be where I am.
Be where your feet are at.
Yeah, is such like an important thing for just my day to day. Like the band I was just out with, their singer really likes to get up and like have a coffee and like meditate. And I realized, like going for a run in the morning is my meditation.
That's me in the gym for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. And then beyond that, it's really important for me to like be a tourist.
Dude, I was going to bring that up. Yeah, you guys it's so fun, and maybe that's the jaded part in me that our projects don't do that as much, but you guys really do try and take in the cities you go to, which is huge. I'm assuming huge for your happiness.
I love that. I think that's a really important thing that not enough people who tour do. I really try hard to do things that I'm not able to do at home. And I will say, as a caveat, as I said earlier, I'm not big on going to clubs. I don't drink. So when people are like, oh, I'm excited to like go to a bar after the show, I'm generally not.
See, no, I'll still do that, but I just get a soda water and bitters, and it still has that kind of cooling effect, like a shot of whiskey does sometimes.
Yeah.
But I still go out because I love the social aspect of it. But
yeah. I mean, I'll definitely do that, now and again. But to me, it's like, generally speaking, my priority would be, in a perfect world, is like, okay, I'm gonna go to bed early so that I can get up earlier and maybe hit a nearby national park before the show, before load in, or go to a museum, hit the aquarium or zoo nearby. I also think we do have a certain responsibility to like take in the culture of the place that we're at. So I think it's really special to be like on this last run, we were in Oklahoma City, and it happened to be the 30th anniversary of the Oklahoma City bombing, and the next day we had an off day, travel day, but I said that we should go to the Oklahoma City bombing memorial. Mm-hmm. And we just had this, like, generally speaking, we're just like dudes broing down. But we had this moment where we went to the memorial, and they had the marathon that morning, and runners had placed their bibs and their medallions on their family members' places in the memorial. And we just had this like really powerful moment where we were all just like sobbing off to ourselves in the corner. But it just felt like a really important moment to be able to be in this city and be able to like pay our respects to something that's important to the culture of that city. In those moments where touring becomes a slog and it becomes really hard and you're missing family, I think embracing those moments where you can go out and see something that you wouldn't have the opportunity to at home and experience and meet new people, that's something that takes me out of that funk more than anything else.
Yeah, and sometimes it's like when I was a Boy Scout, my mom, I wouldn't want to go to certain things. And my mom's like, just do it. And once you get there, you're going to have a good time.
Yeah.
And I always would, Mm-hmm. And so even if you are struggling on the road and just the next tour, the next thing, just tell yourself like what you said. Let's just do those things. Let's have those experiences because the audience deserves it. We'll play a different show because of it. Might say something at the show that makes them feel more aligned with us for whatever reason. If you just tell yourself you're going to do that next tour and see what happens and have a good time.
I mean, even the amount of connection that you have when you're playing in New Orleans and you say to somebody, I had Cafe Du Monde this morning, and their eyes light up. They're like, oh, you appreciate what we have to offer here. You're appreciating our culture here. Even though sometimes you may slip up and mention the tourist trap that nobody goes to. Oh, we went to Navy Pier in Chicago.
If I've never been to the St. Louis Arch, I'll probably do that next time I have an off day in St. Louis. So, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I did that on the last run. It's great.
Exactly.
You got to go.
I'm sure. Yeah. But it's also, it literally makes your life longer. Because the way your brain works is a lot of times if you're doing something similar, kind of monotonous to save CPU, your brain just really doesn't register it sometimes. And so if you're in a green room, there all day on your phone or not really doing anything, going to a Starbucks and going there and sitting on your phone, going back to the venue, your day seems a lot shorter because you don't experience it in real time. But it's kind of like if you want to make your life longer, take a different route on the way home from work, and you are more aware the entire time. And you perceive time as taking longer. It takes longer to get home, even if it's the same amount of distance, because you're not just driving down the same damn road. And so if you want to literally experience more life, do all these things, and your brain has to resonate. It creates new memories because your brain's like, oh, this is actually important. Right. And so you can make your life longer by doing those things, if that makes sense.
1,000,000%. I don't want to name names, but like a buddy of mine did their first, Dave did their first European tour recently. And, he's posting all these pictures from like, oh yeah, here we are in France, but it's just a picture of them in a green room. And I'm like, you went and played in Paris and you didn't get a picture in front of the Eiffel Tower, you know? Yeah. Like you hanging out in a green room is something that you can do in Des Moines, Iowa. No disrespect to Des Moines, Iowa, of course, but
some disrespect.
Yeah, maybe some.
The appropriate amount of disrespect that any city would deserve.
Yes, yeah. But it like kills me. I haven't yet been fortunate enough to tour overseas, but I know that when that day comes, I'm going to blow all the money I make on that tour going to museums. It's going to be really bad.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, like, I will come back with like so relaxed and with so many memories, you know. At a certain point, it's like the things that I remember most about touring are these moments outside of the shows. And I feel like that's true for most people, you know?
Yep.
The shows kind of blur together. Green rooms certainly blur together.
I want to take a quick second to shout out Shure's Nexodyne series of dynamic microphones. Unlike typical dynamics that use a single transducer, Nexodyne mics feature Shure's patented Revonic dual engine technology, which basically means that there are two transducers working together, with one wired out of phase to cut down on unwanted noise. Shure sent me a few to try out, one snare, two tom mics, and a kick mic. And honestly, the timing was perfect because I had to record an audition video. And without getting too geeky, these things cut down on a lot of bleed. The tom mics barely picked up the cymbals and had this pre-EQ'd quality that just sat right in the mix. The snare had shockingly low hi-hat bleed, and the kick was massive but punchy, almost like you had two mics. It was ready to go. So these are clip them on and press record kind of mics. And just to be clear, they didn't pay me to say this, and I'd never endorse anything I didn't actually believe in. So long story short, the audition asked for clarity and tone in the recording, and despite my drumming, I got the gig. So thanks to Shure's Nexodyne series, and that's not me just making up a story for this ad. It really did happen. So they're all under $300, and check them out at shure.com. That's SHURE.com. And I mean, come on. These are the people that made the SM57, the SM58, the 7B. They made the microphone I'm talking into right now. So check out the Nexodyne series at shure.com. I will admit, though, dude, I've been to Paris many times, and I've never been up the Eiffel Tower because I heard Anthony Bourdain say once, you can't see the Eiffel Tower from the Eiffel Tower. So the only time I went up to the Arc de Triomphe. I went there. I went to the top of that, and I could see, you know, that's kind of like, you can see the Eiffel Tower, you can see the Louvre, you can see like a lot of stuff. So I've been to the Eiffel Tower and been to the bottom of it, but I've never gone up. And I've consciously not done it every time.
I'm with you on that one. I went to Paris once when I was a kid, so yeah, I relate.
But you take the picture in front of it, and
I know,
like, oh, look how small it is. Do this.
Except, you know, I look like a dorky kid, so I need a redo. If anyone's doing a European tour and needs a drummer,
God, I hope you did a European tour from this episode. What's something you've changed your mind about in the last year, drumming or otherwise?
Okay. We're dipping back into controversial territory here.
Yes, thank God.
We're going back. I think I have finally figured out my definition of pocket.
This is huge.
Yeah, this is huge. This is huge. So I think, and maybe this is a cop out, and I'll tell you why in a second. But I think my definition is pocket is just playing what is right for the gig, and I think too often playing pocket means playing less. And I just wanted to share an experience I had recently, which I might have shared before, but if not, I'm sharing it again. Too bad. I got called to play.
Edit it out.
Perfect. I got a call to play with a buddy's band who were just like these killer gospel players. It was a cover set at a club. I had 8 hours notice, and typically when I'm called to play a cover set, it is to play pocket in the broad definition that everybody likes to use, playing simply, playing what's on the record, basically, 2 and 4. And that's what I was expecting to walk into. And I was excited to play with these people because they are heavy hitters, really talented. And we get a couple songs in, and I realize that I am not doing well. I am playing really simply, and they're looking at me like, what is wrong with you? Can you play more, please? They're like begging for me to go to town on the drums and play out, play all kinds of notes. And we're playing like classic Motown songs, you know, and we're playing in a way where certainly drummers on Reddit would call it overplaying, quote unquote. But the band is killing, the audience is loving it, and at the end of the day, I realized that I'm hired to quote unquote overplay. So I realized too late, unfortunately for me on this gig, that Pocket for this gig was playing a lot of notes. It's what we generally refer to as overplaying. It made me change my perspective. And when people get in the weeds on, you know, debating Pocket versus chops, I will always remember the gig that I lost, that I will never get called for again because I played, you know, my former definition of Pocket.
Because you played Pocket. Yeah,
because I played Pocket.
Quote unquote.
You know, everyone's like, Pocket gets you gigs. And I was like, well, actually, Pocket lost me a gig. So I'm changing my definition of Pocket. But it was cool to be in that situation and kind of realize how everybody, you know, as much as we want to be warriors on playing simply and, you know, listen to the song and don't overplay and don't be quote unquote selfish, there's a ton of situations where you're not being selfish, where it does hype up the rest of the band to play more. It does hype up the audience to play more. And it was just, you know, in a world where everyone's like, man, you're going to lose gigs if you play too many notes. It was weird to have a moment where I'm not going to get called again because I didn't play enough notes.
Yeah, because obviously you listen to some jazz records and there would be some people that would have the argument that there's no pocket in jazz records.
Right.
But obviously there's pocket. Obviously that's all pocket playing.
Yeah.
You know, in I guess the definition you're using, and I'm not disagreeing with you.
Sure.
Because I don't it's just a word. So whatever, if someone wants you to play pocket, and because it's so undefinable, you can't be on your high horse. You have to define the problem first, or the solution, to know if we've gotten there or not. You know, you have to kind of reverse engineer what it means. And so all I can say is you're not wrong. That's
I mean, to me, like, that term always came about because, like, there's a specific window. For example, there's a tempo window where a song feels really good. And some songs have a wider window than others. So Beatles reference, Come Together, for example, is like my go-to of a song that has a pretty wide window. There's bands who do that song really slow and it sounds awesome. And there's, you know, you can speed it up relatively fast. You know, it's got probably 20 to 30 BPM window that song still feels good. But I think mostly what I'm saying is that there's also a window for how many notes you can play on any different gig, and that window, that pocket where it feels right, is different depending on the gig. And on this particular gig, I was below the pocket. I didn't reach it. And there was more.
Someone had boarded up that window with plywood.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know what my big thing. I guess maybe something I realized this year was how important it is to be a part of a project that you creatively don't care if people like, and that it really is an extension of who you are. And this record that I recorded on the East Coast, it was with 5 musicians, and I did talk about it. It was with you. It was the Gunner gig. It's a band called Hoko, and the album will come out later this year. But we didn't really move forward with any idea, even in post-production after we recorded it. Like, maybe the mix didn't come together, and we're not moving forward unless everyone is, for the most part, being like, I'm stoked on this. If someone really is like, hey man, I just don't feel like this is something that represents, like, I just don't think it represents the project, then there's a good chance it probably won't come out. But if the album comes out and it's just no one really digs it, I truly don't care. I want everyone to love it. I think everyone's going to love it. But the reason why I was a part of that project is because I wanted something that defined a moment in time for me. And whether I even look back and be like, I wish, because I do, there's some parts like I would have done that differently, maybe vary the bass drum pattern in the verse a little bit. But I know that in that moment, for whatever reason, it was working, and I could tell people's body language. And when we got done, they're like, dude, that was perfect. I love it. And so that means in that moment, it was what I wanted to do. And those projects are really important to me now. And yeah, I think the barometer for me is not caring what people think, because I know that I didn't take any compromise to myself on, well, this is probably the better thing that should be happening, so I do that. Everything on that record is something that I signed off on individually. So yeah, maybe I just didn't make that a priority. Not that it's something I changed my mind on, but it's not about being a part of a band that is traveling and I can maybe make more money and have a really good year that way. It's really about making sure I hang on to gigs like this.
Love that.
You know?
Yeah. That like idea of just letting go and playing like quote unquote selfishly, you know?
Yeah.
It's one of those cool things that keeps you grounded. It reminds me why we do this in the first place, right?
Well, 100%. And not to correct you, but just to have a caveat what you said, selfishly. It was selfish for the 5 of us in the room.
Sure. Yeah.
You know, not like I was like, no, guys, I think that drum part's good.
Yeah.
It's like, they're like, well, there's a lot of, and I'm the first to take suggestions. I love it when non-drummers give maybe it's different for other people, but I love it when non-drummers try to be like, for the verse, I'm thinking more like this, whether they mouth it out or they actually go behind the kit and play some whatever the fuck thing they're trying to get out in their head. I love that. And I'm always, because a lot of times non-drummers think of the coolest drum parts. Mm-hmm. You know,
totally.
Like I'm not saying this happened, but I wouldn't be surprised if John Lennon is the one that sat behind. And I'm not saying I believe this, but if we got tape that it was John Lennon went in and played that drum beat for the beginning of Come Together, or played like a weird version of that, and then Ringo was like, oh, okay, and then he did his thing.
Yeah.
You know, like who knows? But right. I love that stuff. So it was selfish for me in the room with the guys, but it wasn't that I wasn't trying to also serve the song, because all my parts I think were for the song.
Right. Yeah, and I should say selfishly, like parentheses, non-derogatory, you know.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, but I mean the idea of just doing it not for creating a hit, not for any specific audience, like just making the music that you truly want to make, art for art's sake, almost. Perhaps not that ethereal, but the idea behind that, you know, where it's just we're doing that because it fills the soul, rather than like it's not for anybody else, it's for you guys. And hopefully
to do a little plug for the podcast, I want everyone to go listen to Jimmy Chamberlain's, a fellow Chicagoan, episode. And he talks about when he was doing a lot of the records that he was a part of, he talks about wanting to do them in afternoons. He wants to document an afternoon of the band or himself. And so sometimes he's mowing the lawn in the rain, or sometimes he's on his back porch and it's sunny and he has a cup of sweet tea. But that's what that afternoon was. And when he listens to Elvin Jones, and Elvin Jones there's definitely some records that when I first heard a lot of what Elvin does, I'm like, damn, he's hitting that cymbal really hard right now. It's a little abrasive. But that was what he did in that moment. And I think that, capturing, and by the way, the record that I recorded, there's some parts where I don't play it perfectly, but the bass, like not the scratch, but the bass tracks, meaning the basics, drums, piano, rhythm guitar, bass, were all done in the room together, no quantizing. Yes, we did most of them to a click. Some of them aren't, though, and you can definitely tell. That'll be the question for people who hear the record. What are the 2 tracks that Ben was definitely not listening to a click? But yeah, it's just a moment. I think we need to get better at capturing moments, because I think it's also from Jimmy's episode, like, who are we to, when we quantize what we do or change, fly in a certain verse, again, there's pop music that needs it. But when we overly change things in takes, what you're actually telling yourself is that you don't like yourself in a certain way. You're it's a defeatist mindset where, like, I don't want people to know that was a moment in time captured authentically, and it was not what I wanted to play, or you hear a stick click, or I messed up. I mean, obviously, if it's a crazy mess up, it's like, yes, fly in a different verse, but try your hardest to just work at your craft so that when you hear those moments in time, you're okay with it. And I'm not sure how I got to this point. I've just been ADHD rambling today, and I acknowledge people listening. This is one of the most fun conversations I've had on a podcast, just so you know, Eric. I'm having a really good time, but this might be the most boring for people. I don't know, but
hopefully not.
I'm having a good time. I guess that's my answer to that. Is just that I've realized how important that is for my confidence. Just being a part of a project where your voice is respected and heard. And I love all the guys in Hoko for that reason. They made me feel so seen and so that my opinion had weight, and it was makes me get emotional thinking about it. But that whole thing was probably some of the best moments I've had in the last, and whether I've told them that, I should tell them all that. But in the last probably 10 years of my career, I'm so grateful for that. And so that's why it's a priority now. It wasn't up until the last year.
I mean, that's amazing. I mean, you've been, I mean, would you say you've basically been hired gun pretty much exclusively for however many years? Is this like when was the last time that you did something that you were like really actively, artistically involved with?
Well, with Eve 6, it's kind of am in this middle ground. So I'm not the original drummer, but I am the second drummer. And I am still on full disclosure, I don't care. I'm still on, like, when I go out, it's day rate stuff with them. So it's not like we divide everything 3 ways. And nor do I expect that. Sure. They have gold records, and I came in as this. So I am, when we write new songs, I always say I have opinions and they have gold records. So there is an unspoken, not even unspoken, but there's a hierarchy in whose opinion is the right one for the context of Eve 6, because they created Eve 6. They created that. They have autonomy over that, and I respect that. Whether throughout the years I've shown maybe a inability to acknowledge that sometimes when writing songs and wanting to change parts, and them giving critique and me kind of respectfully pushing back, and I love those guys, and we have a great working relationship, and that's why I'm going to leave all this in. But I'm still part of the band, but I'm also acknowledge that I am the role of the drummer in the band. It's not 3 equal parts. And again, like I say, nor should it be right now with the legacy of the band. Yeah. But when we're writing songs, they do give me a lot of autonomy. It's just they definitely have opinions on when certain things are a little too busy or whatever. And to be honest, I'll say a lot of times, most of the time, they're right. As a drummer, sometimes I disagree, but that's my own thing, that everyone's going to have their own opinions on that. But yeah, this is the first time where when I speak, it is as important as when the piano player speaks. And not in like a everyone be quiet, Ben's talking, but just in an unspoken subconscious, like, oh, that is a good idea. Let's all actively try that idea with full force, and then see if we like it, and then we'll assess it. But yeah, to answer your question, for the most part, yeah, because I play drums for a living, and that's how I pay my bills. And so I rarely make something a priority if it doesn't have a somewhat immediate financial influence into my life, because I'm a very busy person, and I have a lot of things outside of drumming, all related to music, like I was saying, with the podcast, Big Fat Snare Drum, always working on different projects. But I did that entire record. I was over there for almost a month collectively, with the first like pre-production, and then the second when we were actually recording it. I did it all on spec. There wasn't like, they didn't pay me for my time, and it was the first time in a while where I was completely okay with that, because I really wanted it. I mean, I think the trade-off was, if I got paid to be there, which not necessarily that they offered it as this ultimatum, but I was assuming if I got paid to be there, it'd be like, dude, you're paid to play the drums, that's the thing. But the fact that I was like, no, I want them to be part of this project, I would take the sacrifice of, luckily I have been busy the last few years, so I have the luxury that some people might not have, to take a month off and I was still doing Big Fat stuff. I was still working at night, but I didn't have to say no to a bunch of tours to do this. It was like, no, I'm going to make this a priority financially. I can be there for a month and not worry about it. Yeah, that was the trade-off, and I was perfectly fine doing it, because they're all great musicians.
That's so cool. I mean, I love the point about saying no to like getting a day rate, because you lose a bit of like autonomy, kind of, It's like you get less of a say when you're the one who's in the room getting paid to provide a service.
Yes, exactly.
What a cool experience. I'm jealous.
Well, I mean, you're also part of bands like Marina City and stuff. I mean, you get to, you do have that. And I'm not putting words in your mouth, but maybe it's not, I mean, everyone changes and ebbs and flows throughout their career, that like maybe you would also, not to say you don't want Marina City, but you would welcome another project that is maybe waters this other part of you, that there's an established band, an established sound. There are certain limits that you can achieve with any project.
Sure.
Same with Hoko. There are some ideas that I wanted to do that were like, well, that doesn't work for this project. And I was like, get it.
Right.
It's not like everyone's idea was taken. But I know what you mean, not to put words in your mouth. I know what you mean with how I describe what I think you mean, so I know what you mean.
Well, it is kind of funny because it's almost like I've been going opposite experience for the past like 3-4 years, where Marina City was like my only thing, and that's my creative outlet. That's what I put all of my creative investment into, and then being able to commit a lot more time to doing session stuff. It's been fun to have the creative weight lifted off my shoulders, all of that pressure, and just have someone be like, this is what you're supposed to do, and then I just have to do it, you know? Like, my job is to make others happy, and I get a certain sense of enjoyment out of that service, if you will, you know?
Dude, I 100%, and that's, and I do have to go in a few minutes, so maybe we'll end on this, but
sure.
I was really down on myself. There was a time when I think John, my guitarist in Eve 6, said something about, I'll just say the way I took it is that like, well, I'm not just a paid for hire drummer. I mean, like, that's what, you know, it's a fine. And he was not talking, he wasn't saying like, you're just our paid for hire drummer. He was talking about in my career and stuff. Yeah. And I, for some reason, got super defensive, you know, and then later he was talking to me. He's like, by the way, I saw that you got so, I meant that as a compliment. Like, you're the guy that can do all these things, and you can adapt and be a chameleon. And that's actually like, not many people can do that. And the way I viewed it was this, I had this chip on my shoulder that I almost wanted to only be part of like a Hoko project. Right. But I also realized that getting close with, I'll just say canons, especially because they're kind of in the throes of the current music industry machine.
Sure.
And I respect the hell out of how they've navigated their career and maintained a career, you know, but I also see a lot of the behind the scenes stuff that every band goes through. So it's sometimes I really appreciate, even, and also with Eve 6, that I don't have to be part of that. I am just the guy that's like, here's what you play, and I get my day rate, and I'm going to go home and all that stuff. And I don't have to worry about some of that stuff. And so I've reestablished my relationship with the paid for hire thing, because I think I do actually enjoy that. You know, the fact that I can sometimes not have to be part of those, even just like interviews. If you're on tour and you're like, I don't want to talk to people, and they have to like, you know, they're tired, and the second the cameras are on, they're like, I'm going to answer the question happily. And there's a huge trade-off to that. So,
yeah, I don't have to worry about how much merch gets sold that night.
Exactly.
You know?
I'm going to go in my bunker, read my book. This was fun, dude. I was nervous that with Joe, not that I was nervous with just you and me, but I was like, oh man, that sucks. I was really looking forward to have Joe, because I think the three of us would really get along. But I actually do think this is one of the more fun conversations. And like this example, this conversation is kind of like Hoko, where I wanted to talk about it, and I want to talk about these things, and I want to talk to a good friend like you and see your perspective. If people like it, great.
Too bad.
If they don't, I don't care.
Yeah.
And that's the show. If you're listening on a platform that allows ratings and reviews, do that. It helps more people find the show, so it'll get bigger and better, and hopefully I'll have a chance to sell out one day. But you'll be an OG listener that can brag to all your friends. Anyways, why don't you go and check us out at bigfatsnaredrum.com and follow us on all the socials. Just search for Big Fat Snare Drum and you will find us. The show is edited in part using iZotope RX Audio Editor. It's amazing, so go check that out at iZotope.com. And thanks again to Gunnar Olsen for the theme music. Bye!